Hey folks, can you hear me okay? Can hear me. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Storytime with Max. If you don't know me, I am Max Porter. I am the writer, editor, lore keeper, board game designer, stream runner, and story reader here at City State Entertainment. And the game we're working on is Camelot Unchained. Tonight I'm going to read some of our lore from the game, and I'm going to be reading, we're going to be finishing up part 3 of the Silverhands Becoming story, which I read most of last week. You can always go back and watch that video because it's permanently saved on our Twitch and should be on our YouTube channel in the Lore Read Aloud playlist. So, future voice talent for CU. Well, I guess we'll see Halloween. So, yes. We don't have too much to get through tonight, but it should still be a reasonable chunk of story time. So, to catch you up, last time we read about Nuada and Nimue adventuring through the depths. It's down to the two of them. And they went through the Tunnel of Green Doom. However, in trying to pass through and escape, it became clear that one of them would have to sacrifice themselves to allow the other to escape. So, Nimue chose to do so. She forswore renewal and, using the last reserves of her magic and her power, she blasted the tunnel with ice, destroyed all the evil creatures that were pursuing, and just froze everything in this eerily silent scene. And so we read, Nuada felt something unfamiliar as he slipped out the tunnel's exit, something he found difficult to name. Perhaps it was regret, or simple loneliness. As a stone door slid quietly shut behind him, Nuada found himself standing in a cold meadow with a strange sky, whose color he found difficult to name. Blinking, the Tuatha tried to get his bearings. There was no way he was truly outside. This was another trick of the depths. A sudden change of scene meant to confuse and distract. His last companion gone, there was no one else to turn to, no one else to notice what he might overlook. Yet, there was definitely something wrong here, something off about this rolling meadow. Already chilled, his heart froze within him, and Nuada reeled as he realized that there were no blades of green grass in the field. These were tiny, severed fingers, twitching in a non-existent wind. The ground beneath seemed to be made up of piles of other body parts, corpses, heaped up endlessly to form hills and valleys, stretching as far as he could see. It was a vision out of a nightmare, surreal in its oppressive horror. As sheer revulsion of this place assaulted his senses, Nuada felt a strange presence in the air around him. He was sure it was a living being, though he saw nothing as he spun around. Even the stone door that had led out of the Tunnel of Green Doom was gone. Peals of maniacal laughter rang out from thin air. Was the sound coming from his own lips, or the depths itself? It was all just like a bad dream. Nothing made sense. He felt the tendrils of thoughts creeping into his brain, trying to take control of his mind. In the distance, he saw what looked like an enormous open mouth. Unsure if the decision was truly his own, he began to run toward it. As he ran, the cadaver grass came alive. Hands burst up from the ground to grab at his feet, and the steady stream of foreign thoughts in his head began to tell him to lay down and rest. Everything would be all right. Nuada pushed against the thoughts, even as he drew his sword to cut his way through the living nightmares that tried to hold him in place. Splattered in bits of gore, he ran up the hill that lay between him and that beckoning mouth. As he slipped down the opposite slope, he realized that the hill was a woman's massive breast. He was sliding down fast, and bumps along the slope of the hill hit him with a sickening crunch of snapped fingers. When he reached the vast mouth that opened below, he finally looked at the face that rose above the cadaver grass behind it. The twisted visage was Nimue's. His sanity cracking, Nuada slowed to a stop on the hill, and then just sat there, laughing uncontrollably, as the corpse grass began to pull him down into the ground. Rest, he thought. That would be good. Just a short nap. As he began to lie down, one of his own thoughts pushed through his mental haze. It was a recent memory. Nimue's voice commanding him to run. Trying desperately to shake off both the ennui and the cadaver grass, Nuada tore himself from the ground in a hail of breaking fingers and leapt through the huge open mouth. As the giant white teeth snapped shut behind him, Nuada fell and rolled on something soft. Shuddering, he closed his eyes in the dim shafts of light that followed him between the teeth. The experienced hero told himself it wasn't a tongue he had fallen upon. It was the soft loam on the forest floor of his beloved homeland. For a few moments, all he could do was lie there, panting and pretending, as the dreamlike revulsion of the corpse grass fields slowly left him. When he forced himself to stand up and open his eyes, he saw a fire nearby. Everything else was darkness, impenetrable even to his magical sight. The flickering light of the fire illuminated a stand of trees circling a great forge, walls and roof of sturdy stone. The orange flame burned within, waiting. As he approached the fiery forge, he felt uneasy. It might be no more than another nightmare apparition in this ever-changing sea of horrors. Drawing close, he saw that what he had thought were trees were actually gigantic fingers. Nuada paused. Hesitantly, he employed his veil sight. An aura shimmered in his vision. The stone forge itself was alive and hungry, waiting to devour anyone that came near. "I am sick of this," Nuada's voice cracked. "Come on, depths. Do your worst to me." In one swift motion, he drew his sword and charged forward. As he closed the distance, the thing flared with power. The whole structure rose up on quivering legs, and tendrils of rotting flesh burst out, striking at Nuada like snakes. Nuada twisted and slashed, dancing back and forth and between the blows. The thing's limbs fell away as he cut them, writhing and disappearing. He grinned in concentration. This was a fight he could win. Joy surged through him, eliminating fatigue. He was in his element now, finally able to harm his opponent. Whatever this thing was, he would destroy it utterly. Their battle seemed to rage for hours. Nuada felt himself growing stronger, not weaker, with each sword thrust. He felt the power of the depths, laughing as it surrounded him. But instead of shaking it off, he embraced it, dancing his battle in the near darkness. He drew on that power, using it to attack the strange, mystic forge with greater force. Eventually, Nuada noticed that the tall, tree-like fingers were much closer than they had been. They were slowly, subtly beginning to close around him. This only brought a fresh smile to his face. "Come on," he laughed at the creature. "You can do better." Nuada whirled gracefully from finger to finger, slicing each one off at the base with little effort. As each giant digit fell, he noticed once again that these creatures were not made solely of flesh, but also some other substance, something softer. Nuada didn't much care to look any closer. His senses grew more alert as he dodged and struck, cutting the thing apart piece by piece. Nuada began to feel another presence, something watching, perhaps judging him in this foul place. The palpable malevolence was becoming familiar here. "Well," Nuada muttered, "I should give you something to watch." Nuada called upon one of his many gifts. He summoned strength to him, and began to move with greater agility. Caught in this dance of death with his opponent, he performed wondrous feats so swiftly that he seemed to hang in midair as he spun and slashed, the living embodiment of a warrior. The forge creature seemed to sense this change and tried to retreat, scuttling backward on its ungainly legs, but there was nowhere to go. In seconds, the battle was over. Nuada slipped between two tentacles, bypassing the remaining defenses of the creature, and entered the structure. The anvil in the center of the forge had the brightest aura to his veil sight, so he struck it with his blade. His sword sliced deep through the anvil's top and stuck there. Brains and ichor spewed from within the iron anvil, making Nuada stumble back in disgust. What is this place? What strange world have I entered? Nuada spoke aloud, but there was no one to answer, only the crash of the monstrous living forge falling to the ground. The pure joy of battle faded, and Nuada let his hand drop. He could feel rumbling, shifting, as the fallen creature settled and lay still beneath him. Somewhere out in the darkness, he heard a sound, like clapping. Unsure of what else to do, Nuada wrested his sword from the anvil with another spurt of ichor, then sat on the steps of the forge. He pulled out a rag and began to clean the weapon. A few moments later, peering into the dark, he could barely make out a humanoid figure moving around out there. It was coming closer with a strange gait, almost gliding over the stone floor. Nuada grasped the pommel of his sword and stood up, bringing the weapon back to a defensive position. The shadows parted to reveal a familiar face. It was the merchant who had bargained with Nuada for the entrance to the depths. Stunned, Nuada held his sword a little higher. "Stand where you are, apparition." His mouth felt dry at the thought of how easily the depths could fool his eyes with illusions. Look at how I dealt with the last creature that tried to trick me. The merchant gave him an unctuous smile. Trick you, my friend? Not hardly. You have proven to be a most powerful warrior, and one who is rapidly improving. You are even better than I expected when I hired you. What do you want from me? Asked Nuada hotly. Actually, I want nothing from you, replied the merchant with another smile. He gestured toward Nuada with a gentle hand. I only want you to get what your heart desires, my friend. A new arm, a repaired sword, and other treasures that can help you reclaim your rightful place among your people. No man gives away such things without expecting something in return, said Nuada bitterly. What more do you want from me? You have already given me much, O former king, said the merchant. First, you have truly entertained me, and that happens very seldom. Second, you have opened the way to this place, and dealt with some of its worst horrors. Finally, you have given me the chance to use something that I have wanted for a long time. One of the forges here. I see no real forge here. Nuada shot him a confused look. That creature was false. Yes, but look carefully now at what remains of the beast, said the merchant. Nuada turned partway around, so as to keep one eye on the grinning merchant. The weird limbs of the iron forge thing were quietly melting away like hot glass, leaving a golden forge behind. With his veil sight, he confirmed for himself that this was indeed a real forge, with a true anvil and hot coals. It was no longer a creature in disguise. Nuada turned back to the merchant and nodded, trying not to show his surprise. With a blank face, he answered, I see what you say is true then. I have done my part, and slain the horrors of the depths. The merchant spread his arms and bowed. Now it is my turn. If you would please help me clear away this garbage, I can begin my work. Once again, nodding his assent, Nuada helped the merchant clear the forge and the surrounding area of the large chunks of giant fingers and tentacles that remained. Pulling out a finely made wand, the merchant waved it to spew forth a stream of fire, burning away the last of the dead flesh. He talked casually over the bubbling and cracking. With that all done, I shall set about my work. Take some time to rest, Nuada. Then, feel free to explore this place. You never know what you may find here, added the merchant, as he unpacked some bags that Nuada hadn't noticed before. So, walk carefully, and don't stray too far. I will make you a great gift, but it will take some time. Days, perhaps. Nuada didn't need to be told that there was more power to be found, and if the entity calling itself the Merchant was correct, Nuada had slain the worst of the horrors, and only a short rest was necessary. He took it, sitting on a stone by the anvil, staring off into the dark. Thus ends the third part of the Silverhands Becoming story, as well as Storytime with Max for this evening. Let's see. Join us tomorrow. Today's Thursday, so join us tomorrow for Morning with Max. I'll be on in the morning for about half an hour to just chat with whoever wants to chat and talk game dev and stuff. And about Camelot Unchained, of course. And then we'll have the end of week wrap up and where we go over the top 10-ish items of progress for the week, and then usually have a bunch of Q&A afterward. So yes, that'll be at 4 p.m. our time tomorrow. I will make the schedule appear in the chat so you can compare it with your own time. And thanks for listening, folks. I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you later.